and there was no conversation about what is talk with Daniel. So it's one. No, it's gonna be. It's pretty unique. It's pretty special to be asked and not quite understand why I'm being asked, but kind of understand. So I feel like I was given the task to lead the warm-up in the jam. Maybe many of you were there. That was really fun. That's a kind of talking that fun for me to do. That's a kind of talking that I practiced a lot. It's a little bit similar to teaching. It's a little bit similar to improvising and directing. It's like my dancing. And there was a lot of information. There was some information in that talk. Then I've been talking to individuals around the festival, some a lot, and in my class. So I sort of feel a bit talked out, and like I've said a lot. But so what and I'm a responder. I'm a professional responder. Maybe I'll sit here, because so it's easier. So what I thought to do is to just sit for a moment or a fraction of a second and to see like what questions, what did you come here to hear? What questions does anybody have that you might want to ask, that you think is appropriate for this situation, or that you might want to ask me? And then I'll have a place to start from, and then I'll also be a little bit like together with somebody, and not just talking of them. So maybe maybe we'll hear like a few questions, not just one, and then I'll see what to do. So speak loud and like so everyone can hear you.
Like about that if you change over the years, and I would like if you can say more about the response and the responsibility.
Of what?
Like in dancing, in mutual dance contact, like the response and responsibility.
Response and responsibility was something about over the years, right? Okay, what else?
I hear this question a lot of time in India. People ask me what is contact dance, and I don't think I am good enough to respond there. I just want to know how, if you can explain in a very small sentence what is contact dance.
On that, I think it would be interesting to hear how you understand Steve Paxton's definition and how you define it.
Yeah, there's a bunch. So let's go a little bit more because it's all relating. So
I'd love to know, to hear how do you incorporate more of contacts, improvisation values or principles or ideas in life outside the jam?
I heard that you are.
sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. I heard that you are really interesting about mathematics. Do you make some link with contact dance or movement?
I like that question. Okay, let's kind of stop, but with the hands. But you had your hand, and you had your hand, and we'll hear those, and then like I might forget what you asked because it's too many things. So
mine is a bit similar to the first one. I'm just interested in knowing how contact improvisation has changed and evolved during the time you've been doing it.
I would like to know more about release beginning. Or how was it in the beginning, and what was the motivation or the incentive, or how did you do it?
So I try not to. I try to, make things concise. Like, so. I still the definition of contact improvisation for me, it's the same as I cannot speak for Steve Paxton, and I don't know what he would say, and so in a way I can't really exactly, you'd have to ask him, but the understanding I had from him, from being his dancer in a performance project, is still the definition that I carry with me now. It's not actually, well, okay, and let's see, can I say this? It's, let's just focus on that event. That was a performance event to display to the public different individuals' survival strategies, in particular relating to how they survive being disoriented in space in terms of gravity and touch, and those responses that are reflexive and unconscious, to build a frame around them and call that dance composition. And that's my definition of contact improvisation. I have written that in an article that was printed in Contact Quarterly, but it also is on my website, called Contact Improvisation, A Question. It's pretty much everything I care or feel I need to say about contact improvisation is in this 2 or 3 page thing. So that's my definition. Does that make any sense? If it doesn't, there's something wrong with me, or I didn't explain it right. And then where do we go from there? Then I don't. Yeah, where we went from there is yeah. So, like, what you have to understand that we were young and sort of sportive, or in fairly good shape. You know, physical people, and we were performing, and there was only a little bit, like only like 5 days of watching stuff, of an image of what it is that we're doing. Like, there were no photos of contact improvisation, no videos of contact improvisation. The name was just put on the flyer for that event. There were no other people in the world doing it or teaching it. So that was a particular, that time doesn't exist anymore. And the work, while a lot of the preparation for that was very, very slow. We did like standing for 20 or 30 minutes while Steve talked. We did Aikido rolls and Aikido stuff. We did forward rolls and backward rolls. Steve's concern was to give us enough tools so that we wouldn't get hurt. But the dancing itself was, could be, not always, but could be extremely active. Extremely like up in the air jumping, like, and very, so we didn't really know anything except, so we were disoriented, I think, on many levels, physically, and that caused us to display to the public our unconscious survival reflexive movement, which I think normally a person in public would not want to show unconscious stuff because you want to present yourself. So that was Steve's trick, and that trick, like, he put us in a situation where we really couldn't control what we did, and therefore, that state didn't last very long. Like, people are smart and they learn quickly. I would say, like, the next year, I did a similar project with Steve in Rome, and it was also pretty raw and rough for me too. But after that, so that was like 1 year. After that, I think people began to learn what it is that they're doing and have opinions that they like this and they didn't like this, and it started to be different. The work started to be different. Not this unconscious material, but like showing people that you're good at this unconscious material and wanting to be good at it and being good at it and practicing. And I had well, it took me a while for various reasons to really be clear that my interest was not that. That my interest was in, I feel lost for words, but like in solving math problems. Like in having a problem that you don't know the answer to, and staying with it, and turning your mind in a direction that you don't, turning your mind and see a direction that you didn't know before, and having something new come in that could be in your imagination, in your perception. And so since being disoriented wasn't working anymore, I devised other strategies for maintaining that, what I love, like the spontaneous occurrence of images and being a vehicle for that. Let's see, I did it was a very, very interesting experience to perform, to survive a dance, and people are watching, and all you're doing is dealing with it. For 20 or 30 minutes, you're in it. And another thing I loved about the beginning was it came from Steve and his leadership, that either the way he led and the things he chose to do and his timing, the setup, what I got was that every single thing that happened was intensely observed. Every single thing. There was no backstage. When the dancing fell apart to zero, that was the dancing. And so, in a way, it was like on stage. But to be observed while you're dealing with something, you're not like projecting anything. You're just dealing with something, and then it ends, and then people applaud, and your skin turns red because you're like, oh, I didn't notice that I made anything or I gave anything. I only received something. I only had an experience in public, and that was really so cool because all you did was get something, and while you're getting things, other people appreciate you getting your things for yourself. And how cool is that? That's great. I'd like to do that again. So my work now is like how to organize my mind so I don't need emergency situations to question things and not know things, and how I can be. In our last year, 2 years ago, I taught a master class to college students in this university who were not really, they were really young. And anyway, one girl said to me, after I said some of these like bizarre ideas, she said to me, what would a virtuoso of your technique look like? And I thought that was an interesting question, you know, like if you get advanced in this, what you're talking about, like, what do you become? Like, you know, what can you do? Like, what do you look like? Like a great ballet dancer, you know what that looks like. She just didn't have any image about what it would look like. And I didn't have an immediate answer, but we had finished the class, and I said something like, it's that you, as a performer or a teacher, you can enter and be the vehicle for everyone in the room to see their own images, to give them back what they see, and not show them what you want them to see. And that's a kind of virtuoso. So it's I admire that when I saw it in performers, and I've seen it very strongly in Steve. Not only Steve, Lisa Nelson, Simone Forti. These are like people from my generation who are really good at what they do. And so,
This means you don't have images when you dance, so you're actually researching something and you don't have responsibility for the images that you create, or if that makes sense?
there's like, yeah, I have images, but they're not yours. So I don't have your images. This is another kind of silly thing to say. One of my students, after we did a workshop performance, said after, she said, wow, performing is like taking drugs. And I said, yes, it is. But when you're a performer, you're the drug, and the audience is taking you. So you don't go on the same trip. Like, and so And I like why I like performing is because it just intensifies that challenge. So something occurs to you, like you feel like you're, yeah, like in the class I say things like you're a cheetah, you're a horse, you know, you're a horse. I feel like I'm a horse. Then it's different if you realize I am not a horse. I am not being a horse, and I'm not going to be a horse and show people how good of a horse I am. I am going to realize that there's some form to some more high-level form to what I'm doing. So that's why it's a dance technique. I need to know certain elements of movement that are more elementary than being a horse, and let that pass through and away, and not represent it. As soon as I represent it, the audience does not. It's very, very easy for them to see a guy who's showing them that he thinks he's a horse, and that's what they're seeing, and that closes it down. So the images come for free, but it isn't what you're doing. It's what happens. It's what happens, and it's the pleasure of. And what I feel in my class, for example, is would do this exercise like I always felt disappointed that I didn't think of it myself. That my teacher had to tell me. and then I wait a minute, and I wrote it down. I checked it out. It was right. It was right. And yeah, and then as I really woke up, I went, oh no, I dreamed him telling me this. So mine works in interesting ways, but I think you can get used to the fact. Maybe you can have the belief or the knowledge that beyond what you know is information. It's right there, it's right next to you, and maybe you already realize it, and you don't realize you realize it. And if you can relax and allow, like some entrance of some like other concept, and that's solving a math problem, is that, and that's similar. It's a perceptual thing. You have to see it in a different way, and the solution comes out. So I feel this in the physics of like picking up a chair, and it moves my body down. I pick it up, it moves my body down, and if I feel it moves me down, it changes it, and if I have that thought and I'm acting and I pick something up, and I just know that as I pick it up, like it's moving me down, that I hold like two alternative explanations in my mind gives you, I think, gives the viewer a chance to see something they kind of quite can't put a name to, and that gives it a presence and an energy. So over the years, like it hit me like I mean, well, you see, contact improvisation was a performance project. Only one. It only lasted 10 days and then it was over. So it wasn't a thing that you could do a lot. You just, I didn't know if it would ever happen again. I liked it, but that was it, you know. Okay. So meanwhile, I had been doing this other work, releasing technique. I was in a company, so I was always doing different things with movement, and it wasn't really a possibility to be a part of contact improvisation. So anyway, I always had other interests, but it hit me later, when I kind of later, when I had understood things more, that contact improvisation was, compared to what I understood at the beginning, it had become really, really stylized. Like I sometimes described it like as like maybe like the first people who went on a snowboard. They just dealt with the board and the mountain, and then, you know, and then it got clothes and boards designed, and companies make great boards, and then people teach it, and then, you know, it's like there's moves, and you learn the moves, you know, and that I saw contact like that, like moves, and I saw people really attracted to great moves, and I saw people teaching be attracted to great moves, and I said, wow, this is not what this is not what I was attracted to. So and you know, it's funny to ask me like about contact, because you probably know much more about it than me, because I don't pay attention to it that much. I go to the festivals where I'm teaching, but you know, I don't take other people's classes, and well, I'm getting better at going to jams than I used to be. So I see people dancing, and I dance with people, but that's all I know in a way. But my personal experience is in the last few years in the fest here. I mean, I was in Ibiza 2 times. And here I realized I think people are not necessarily buying into the stylization of contact improvisation. Maybe they like it, but they're not. But I thought it's something they found that brings them into an activity that's a way of being physical and interacting with their environment that they're interested in, and where else can you do it? So it's there. So when I offer sort of alternative things that are on the same, basically the same subject, the people I'm working with, they're just as interested in it as anything. It's like, yeah, why not? So I feel it's more open, because I did have experiences of students in my contact class demonstrating in the class, standing up in the middle of an exercise and making a big statement, this is not contact improvisation. So I thought the solution to that, I was doing a lot of work with stillness. So I thought the solution to that is just change the name. And I made a weekend workshop called The Activity of Doing Nothing. Then I thought, okay, now people can complain if we do too much. And that actually worked. When I named the workshop The Activity of Doing Nothing, it was like, okay, I have to fulfill that for 3 days workshop. And I did, and it was very interesting to make these different proposals to myself. Like, and I believe that you can't learn everything from doing contact improvisation. It's a fantastic form, but it has limits, and not everything is included in it. Not everything about how you respond to the environment is included in that. And jams are also even more limited, because they have a particular nature. Space, how you can read space is limited at a jam, just because there's like all kinds of people moving really close to you who don't care what you're doing because they're not paying attention. They're just doing, it's fine. But to learn other things, you need to set up a different frame, and then other. Like it's like a lens, like contact improvisation is like a camera. It has no contents. It's a frame, and it looks at certain things. It's like you put a filter on the camera and you like eliminate space, eliminate story, eliminate time, like, you know, time like beginning end time. You know, like a dance in a jam is like you start, you dance as long as you want, and you stop when you're tired. You know, it's not like, it doesn't measure like, oh, what happens if, you know, I do this, end. You know, like it doesn't measure that. So you, if you put a different filter on your camera and set up a different experiment, you learn different things. But the strategies of how to work with observing and these things I was talking about, having images pass, how to make a fit frame in your physicality to observe, that's the same. Like in my opinion, like how I use my attention in a contact duet is the same. When I'm doing contact is the same as how I use my attention if I'm working with a stillness structure with a group of people. So that's let's see. Alright. Do I make sense to you guys?
Yes.
Is there more questions, or should we end? I can make a closing statement. Did I answer your question? Yes, I did. Right? What is contact improvisation?
I have a question. Besides the background in contact improvisation and the mathematics influence, also sensory awareness. So, can you say something about other influences? I don't know if you know Charlotte Seaver. Okay. But other influences, like today you were showing us the book of.
Yeah, John Rowland.
John Rowland.
Well, that makes there was. Yeah, I remember something that maybe I could say, but yeah, it was an amazing accident, but maybe at that time in that place, like. So I was in college studying mathematics in 1970, and that was around the time, I don't know how much dance history you know, but you know, contact improvisation was made by a dancer, a Cunningham dancer, and Cunningham technique was a setup and supported in my opinion, it's set up as a legacy, a chain of ideas, and created a stage from which contact improvisation could manifest. Because he didn't tell stories, and he didn't make any meaning. And that opened looking at movements without more abstractly. And then all the Judson Church experimentation was happening around then, or it was ending, and it was still very alive. So there were a number of people developing, I don't know the name, Mary Fulkerson, I think she called her work anatomical release technique. And the same thing happened with that work than with contact improvisation. It got stylized, and I happened to be at the beginning of that too, and so I have another article on my website that's of what is release technique. And it's also, I think, a description of the work I did with Mary. I can't say it better because I really crafted those words, and the sentences are carefully worked out, and if you care to read it, it's a reference. It's also on my website. And it was printed not in the quarterly, but so that was also another way of looking at how the mind and the body function, and looking at living movement, and completely independent of contact improvisation, and different. But I was dying from being soft, you know. I wasn't a very flexible person. I was a runner and a jumper, and you know, I couldn't touch my toes. You know, and my body changed amazingly from the release. I learned where is my center line. I could turn without falling over. And it was, when I took modern dance class, I go, fuck, I don't know. Yeah, I'm supposed to spin. I didn't know what I was doing. And it was a great feeling to be taught certain things like walking. Where's your center line? Where's your center line? And then walking in a circle. And you walk in a circle by, like, this is a triangle. And you just rotate your hips. Then if you walk in a circle around your own center, it's like turning, you know, but it's walking. It's not turning, it's walking. And choosing this direction and that direction, and like, then I could turn and leap and turn and really know where I was. And it was nice to learn how to do things. But when Steve came and he did a 24-hour dance class. We slept together. Yeah, we slept together and started at dawn. And I woke up and already people were doing things, and I just joined, and breathing, and very, very, very slow. That very standing, breathing, walking. And a little bit of contact with the lower legs, and the power and force in Steve's body was great, because I could never be like my female dance teacher, never. I just didn't have that body. But Steve, I could see like, yeah, maybe I can be like him. So it completed a kind of picture, and I still feel the picture of a lot of my material in my class it's coming from a feeling like completing something that was incomplete. How things really work. Like release was one thing. The force and the contact was another thing. Like bringing things into focus. So my thought was, it's like a line of, and if you're learning and studying, when you do research about your movement, you can, and maybe this is happening and I'm the one who's not getting it, you can discover and learn things that no one else quite knows yet, and add that to the pool of knowledge of things that can be taught. So this is, because such a big subject, like physics, like not one person cannot think of everything, so it takes like a lot of minds what am I talking about? Yeah. The things that went into it. So that was one thing, and that influenced my teaching. That was one thing, and it was interesting how they were so close, but not the same. That two different teachers of mine were really working with the same thing from different angles. So I was lucky that it just happened to me like that. Maybe I won't say that. So, are we finished? Or is there another?
Can I ask one question?
No. Yeah?
I heard you say earlier when you were defining contact improvisation that it had to do with the subconscious and allowing it to work out.
The unconscious.
The unconscious.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I was just interpreting it wrong.
No, maybe I said the wrong thing. I don't know the
Is the difference between the
subconscious and unconscious.
Well, that was, I was
don't
kind
know
of
the
thinking of like either you're working out kind of emotional things that you're not aware of, or something like the universe is dancing itself.
Say that again?
So either you're working out things that you're unaware of, like emotional things, or you're kind of, the universe is dancing itself. You're just in the flow of, you are your environment.
Yeah, like I would say that, like if you're in a moment of a dance or you're in a class or something, you are surrounded by information. You could say 90% of it you're not aware of. Maybe you're aware of more because you're here in this festival and you've practiced.
And you mean being aware with your consciousness?
Yeah, aware, conscious. But I'm just talking, but I would say like, it's unfortunate, I said this in my class, it's unfortunate that in language, the syntax is, there's a word for body and there's a word for mind, and the best we've come up with is body-mind, which is really it's still two things. But and so this is fantasizing, but it's good to fantasize because inside your experience, like anyway, nobody knows, so why not fantasize? But like you could say you're surrounded by information. It's there, and the knowing that what is knowing, that it's like stratified many levels. So you know things that you don't know you know. and so if you believe that, or when you understand that, it gives you more support to tolerate not knowing, and to keep high energy and alertness when you're disoriented by not knowing. And that's one of the things that students in my work need to learn, and it takes patience and gentleness and acceptance and a little bit of trust in the invisible, that the invisible can become visible. But you have to have a positive experience before you're going to have a trust. So you need some positive experience. I don't know how that happens, and it's amazing that it happens. But there's an intelligence that people have. So in a moment in the jam, in your contact duet, when like you just really know the way of like you don't have to remember the things that you know. The environment, and you could say your body's the environment. The environment holds the memory, and when the situation, when you need that, you know it, because it comes from the environment, and it's not like so that's a fun thing to do at a jam, like just open your mind. I'm not dancing with the partner, I'm dancing with my environment. So someone else's hand comes in there and you just go, and you don't ask them, can I dance with you? Do you want to dance with me? You are dancing with them because you decide, because you're, and other things as well. When you pick someone up, maybe when you apply force to something and it doesn't move, it moves me. I don't move it because it just moves me. That's the equation. But you have to break the convention that like, I'm moving this thing, I want to move it. It moves you back, and those little things, studying those little things will, I find that it's a pleasure to gather in the information that's invisible and manifest it. So yeah, that's a good way to say what I didn't want to say before. Okay, what time is it? We stop. Yeah. Thank you.